Good morning. I hereby call to order this 7th meeting of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for the year 2018 and ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to point out the safety information that's on the inside cover of the agenda. Also, the first matter on this morning's agenda is the approval of the minutes of April 5th, 2018. And I recognize Commissioner Kennard, who is the editor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes of the April 5, 2018 meeting and recommend that they be approved as submitted.
You have heard the motion to approve the April 5th, 2018 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Place. Any discussion, revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. We will move on to this morning's agenda, starting on page 1 with the Bureau of Audits. Before us is the matter of Columbia Water Company. Is there a matter to adopt the staff recommendation? Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweet, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 2, under the cases under the Bureau of Consumer Services, you see before you the National Fuel Gas Distribution Company. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman, second by Commissioner Sweet. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 3, under the matters under the Office of Special Assistance, we'll go in omnibus fashion, starting with the first case at the top of page 3, the Office of Consumer Advocate versus Hidden Valley Utility Service LP, and the remaining case on that page 3, and then moving through and including all of the matters on page 4. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweet, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 5. At the top of page 5, there is the Philadelphia Gas Works case. Is there a motion to call up the matter for consideration?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Place, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Commissioner Sweet.
Thank you. Before the Commission for consideration is the Office of Consumer Advocates, OCA's petition for reconsideration of our November 8th order disposing of the Philadelphia Gas Works, PGW, 1308 small d tariff filing. The petition before us requests reconsideration of our decision regarding the relevance of PGW's partial payment allocation practices to its existing rates, rules, and regulations, and the proper allocation of the burden of proof standard. OCA's arguments are, in my mind, persuasive. The petition has met the DUIC standard for reconsideration, having raised new and novel arguments, and I move that the petition be granted. OCA argues that due process has been adequately provided to all parties with regard to the issue of PGW's application of partial payments to customers' bills. I agree and believe requiring OCA to refile a new complaint would be a waste of judicial resources. OCA's request for reconsideration should be granted. The methodology used by PGW to apply partial payments, applying them to all late payment charges due before applying the payment to the balance due for prior basic service, conflicts with our regulations. Section 56.24 of our regulations requires that a partial payment first be applied to a customer's balance due for prior service. In order to comply with Section 56.24 of our regulations, PGW should not give priority to late payment charges over other basic charges due for prior service. Additionally, in prioritizing late payment charges over other basic charges, PGW uses a method which applies a partial payment against more recent non-interest-bearing late payment charges, followed by older interest-bearing principal. This methodology fails to comply with our regulations, which prohibit utilities from assessing late payment charges that lead to amounts that exceed to 1.5% interest per month or 18% simple interest per annum on the overdue balance of the bill. In applying the partial payments out of sequence, PGW effectively charges interest rates in excess of the 18% annual limit. As PGW's practices fail to comply with our regulations, I move that PGW be required to amend its partial payment allocation methods. OCA also argues that reconsideration is warranted because we, the Commission, appear to have raised a new and novel interpretation of the law by concluding a quality of service issue may only be addressed in a base rate proceeding if there is a financial impact in the overall revenue requirement or cost of service. I now recognize that quality of service issues are frequently raised in base rate cases, and I agree with OCA that we failed to consider that an adjustment to the revenue requirement or cost of service is not always the remedy necessary to resolve a quality of service issue raised in a base rate proceeding. PGW's application of partial payments out of order, and as a result imposing excessive interest, constitutes a failure to provide adequate and reasonable service under Section 1501. The remedy necessary in this proceeding is not one that would involve the revenue requirement or cost of service, and would instead be a revision to the partial payment allocation methodology. Therefore, OCA's request for reconsideration regarding our determination surrounding quality of service should be granted. Because PGW's partial payment allocation methodology fails to comply with Section 1501 of the Public Utility Code and Sections 56.22A and 56.24 of our regulations, I move that, number one, the petition for reconsideration of the Office of Consumer Advocate be granted consistent with this motion. Secondly, within 90 days of the date of the entry of the opinion and order, PGW should revise its methodology for the application of partial payments on customer accounts to be in accordance with this Commission's regulations. And third and finally, the Office of Special Assistance should prepare an order and opinion consistent with this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You have heard the motion of Commissioner Sweet. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Place. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the matter of Frontier Communications of Breezewood LLC.
Madam Chairman, I have a conflict statement assuring the parties that Rachel Maurer did not advise me in the case we just voted on, and asked that it be spread on the record as if it had been read.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennard. Moving on to Frontier Communications of Breezewood LLC, is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweet, second by Commissioner Coleman. Under discussion, I would state that I will be recusing myself from voting on this matter consistent with Section 1102 of the Commonwealth Ethics Act because my brother is employed by Frontier Communications. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 4-0, noting my recusal. Moving on, at the bottom of page 5, the Windstream Pennsylvania LLC matter, is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Sweet. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 6, under the matters under the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, we will go in omnibus fashion, starting at the top of page 6 with the Duquesne Light Company matter. All of the matters on all the cases on page 6 and all of those on page 7, through and including the Residential Long Distance, Inc. case. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 8, under the matters for the Law Bureau, is there a motion to adopt the case dealing with PennDOT, the petition filed April 13, 2018, to transfer jurisdiction to the Court of Common Pleas of Dauphin County?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Place, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any discussion on this matter? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the alternative rate-making methodologies matter that's before us, is there a motion to call up this case for consideration?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweet, second by Commissioner Coleman. Under discussion.
Chairman, I have a motion on the matter.
Vice Chairman Place.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, I ask that my motion be placed into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission is an extensive record of comments and reply comments regarding what future rate-making policy should provide in support of an evolving utility economic landscape, driven by technological change, declining consumption, evolving policy, and the need for utility resilience in light of physical and cyber threats. I appreciate the staff's effort to set forth a broad policy statement that reflects the consensus of comments that the Commission should avoid a one-size-fits-all approach. And I agree with minor modifications that set forth the purpose and scope of the policy statement and the distribution rate considerations we will expect parties to address with any specific proposal. Particularly with respect to energy, however, I believe our policy should leave the door open to a significantly broad range of possibilities while ranging for consideration without any predetermination of their suitability for approval, a few rate design options. I argue that the changing energy landscape in particular necessitates rate designs that address a few first-order principles. Policies must support the continued efficient use of all energy resources. The evolution of a distributed energy environment requires substantial and well-targeted investment in distribution infrastructure. Policies must encourage least cost solutions with cost recovery based on long-term cost causation. Rate design should embrace, where feasible, the additional capabilities enabled by smart meter deployment. And, as noted by the Office of Consumer Advocate, costs are variable in the long run. Therefore, it may be appropriate for energy utilities to design rates in a manner that minimizes the long-term costs of serving existing and new loads. Given the substantial and ongoing long-term infrastructure improvement plan spending by the electric and natural gas utilities, a long-term approach to rate design may be appropriate. Given these principles, a number of new approaches in the electric industry could be advanced. These include, but are not limited to, performance-based incentive rate designs, performance incentive mechanisms, various levels of decoupling, and variations of demand-based and time-of-use pricing options, such as critical peak pricing. Also, given current advanced metering constraints in the natural gas industry, models such as weather normalization adjustment or revenue per customer adjustment, if proposed and implemented with care, could balance utility and consumer needs by just and reasonable means that better ensure utility revenue recovery and system use. Similarly, on the electric side, critical peak pricing and demand-based programs that use average usage over critical peak periods as demand-based billing determinants may offer a proper balance. I'll reread this just because I stumbled over like 6 words in the sentence. So, recovering myself here. Similarly, on the electric side, critical peak pricing and demand-based programs that use average usage over critical peak periods as demand-based billing determinants may offer a proper balance of these interests. I'm prepared to perform in Broadway if anybody would like. For these reasons, I propose the addition of a new subsection to articulate for illustrative purposes these principles for consideration. The inclusion of this subsection does not signal, nor should it be interpreted as signaling, any predilection by the Commission to favor one proposal over another, or any predetermination by the Commission that the proposal of one of these examples comes with any presumption of approval. As evidenced in this proceeding, there are a variety of rate designs that address the needs of a changing utility landscape. I believe it is important to note options that are grounded in rate-making principles and may help customers and utilities move forward to minimize future long-term costs, allocate capital more efficiently, and achieve important policy objectives. Therefore, I move that fixed service utilities proposed policy statement be modified consistent with this motion, and that Law Bureau prepare an order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
You have heard the motion of Vice Chairman Place. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kennard. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. On the matter as amended, I would like to put some comments on the record to talk about the policy statement that we are voting on today. We know that the utility landscape is evolving rapidly, none more rapidly than in the electric industry. Increased penetration of distributed energy resources and electric vehicles present both a challenge and an opportunity for regulators and utilities. From a challenge perspective, the increased adoption of these technologies will likely work to decrease utility capacity utilization or the ratio of peak demand to average demand. This places significant headwinds on the distribution rates. However, the Electricity Committee has an opportunity to utilize the portfolio of new technologies such as advanced metering, advanced grid monitoring, energy efficiency, demand response, and smart thermostats to better accommodate the evolving demand profiles created by this new energy landscape. Accordingly, I wish to highlight that this proposed policy statement includes a general provision related to the impact of capacity utilization. As a measure, capacity utilization can be used to judge the efficiency of an electric distribution system. I am interested in consideration of rates by our electric utilities, which can work to increase distribution system capacity utilization in effort to foster system efficiency and insulate customers from rate increases. I encourage parties to comment on rate designs that can foster distributed energy adoption while also working to increase capacity utilization in an effort to potentially guide the Commission to more specific policy statement annex provisions. On the matter as amended, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Seeing none, the matter as amended passes 5-0. We will move on to the remaining items under the Law Bureau, starting on page 8 with the United Telephone Company of Pennsylvania, LLC. The remaining item on page 9 and page 8 and that of page 9. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Place, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to page 10, under the matters of the Office of Administrative Law Judge is the Eugene A. Haywood versus Philadelphia Gas Works case. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. That is the remaining items on the regular agenda. We will move to the carrying agenda, and the first item on that is the Elverson Water Company, Inc. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweet, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to items under the Law Bureau, the Sunoco Pipeline LP case. Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Place, second by Commissioner Kennard. Under discussion, I would like to put my comments on the record. On March 7, 2018, the Commission granted the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement's ex parte emergency order requesting immediate suspension of Sunoco Pipeline's Mariner East 1 pipeline due to public safety concerns raised by the development of sinkholes along the pipeline's route in the vicinity of Lisa Drive, which is in West Whiteland Township. Before us for consideration is Sunoco's petition to lift the suspension and BINE, which is our Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement, their statement concurring with Sunoco's request. First, I wish to state that this proceeding is not an ordinary event for this commission. Therefore, I did not take the action of suspending the pipeline lightly, and I take today's action even more seriously. We explained in the ex parte emergency order that the corrective actions that Sunoco would have to undertake to resume the service. Sunoco has implemented those corrective actions. Our BINE has reviewed Sunoco's remedial efforts extensively and is satisfied that the pipeline can resume operations safely. Because the directives of the emergency order have been met, I will vote to grant Sunoco's petition. Numerous individuals and organizations filed interventions at this docket. I thank those concerned individuals and organizations for actively attempting to inform the Commission on the vital topic of pipeline safety. However, I must point out that this ex parte emergency order focused on the specific public safety event occurring on Lisa Drive. Because the parties tasked with carrying out the directives of the March 7th emergency order have satisfied the conditions of that order, all petitions to intervene are now considered moot. I always get that messed up. Excuse me. While the specific concerns outlined in the Commission's emergency order have been remedied, there are still legal vehicles for concerned citizens and entities to have their voices heard. The individuals and organizations who attempted to intervene in this proceeding may file their own formal complaint or intervene in an existing complaint which relates to their concerns. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. That concludes all the matters on our agenda and carry-in agenda. Before we adjourn, I would like to recognize Commissioner Sweet for comments on drinking water.
Safe drinking water.
Safe drinking water week, okay.
Toast. Today, the PUC joins elected officials, water utilities, and community leaders in recognizing, quote, Drinking Water Week in Pennsylvania, close quote. The state Senate has issued a lovely proclamation designating May 6th through 12th as Drinking Water Week in an effort to increase awareness about the importance of water and water conservation. The PUC is one of several state agencies cited in the proclamation because of our mission of regulating the rates and services of investor-owned companies and ensuring that safe and reliable water service is provided to ratepayers at a reasonable price. It was just 2 days ago in this very room that our former PUC colleague and current FERC Commissioner Rob Powelson was presented with the James McGurr Kelly Award for Excellence, the highest honor bestowed by the National Association of Water Companies Pennsylvania chapter. In receiving the award, Commissioner Powelson proclaimed that, quote, the Pennsylvania PUC has set the gold standard in water regulation and investment, close quote. That is a calling the Commission embraces wholeheartedly. Water is far too valuable a resource to be taken for granted. From prudent rate-making to daily oversight to working with utilities to strengthen water system viability, the Commission is continually taking an active role to assure safe and reliable service. And if I might, Madam Chair, go off script for just one moment to say that this whole effort gave me pause and thought about our late colleague on the PUC, Bill Shane, who was also a former member of the State House of Representatives and who also was a colleague of mine when we were both faculty members at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Bill Shane made the whole issue of delivery of safe drinking water a crusade. It was one of his major priorities as a member of this commission, and we are pleased, I think, to continue in that tradition through to and including most recently Commissioner Powelson and his diligent and vigorous work, and we're all proud and humbled to follow in those footsteps and will continue to do so. So on behalf of my fellow commissioners and PUC staff, I'm pleased to highlight Drinking Water Week in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweet, and we do congratulate our former colleague, Commissioner Powelson, and also want to acknowledge the great comments that were put on the record at the conference earlier this week by Commissioner Kennard. So if there's nothing else to come before us today, seeing none, is there any objection to adjournment? Seeing none, we are adjourned.